Good morning and welcome to my hobby bench. Today's video and version of engine talk is about Enya engines. Not just Enya 4-strokes, which is what I've got here on the table, but we'll talk a little bit about a 2-stroke and maybe just touch on another topic also. So what I wanted to do is, in the past few weeks, I've been working on this Enya 4-stroke engine and reading and seeing some other listings on eBay and some other places regarding some Enya 4-stroke engines. So I wanted to make a quick video and explain some of the differences between these three particular 4-stroke engines, and just say that anybody that's watched my channel for years and years knows that I am a huge fan of both Saito and Enya 4-stroke engines. And one of the main reasons is because the original designs have stood the test of time. And these are original designs that date back to the early 80s, if nothing else. In the original design being this rear camshaft design, forward-facing, glow plug, that type of thing. Unlike OS, who has been a huge portion or a huge part of the modeling industry for many, many years, but chose to take a different route and branch off and do some innovative things with carbs and pumps and stuff. And I don't really necessarily agree with a lot of their later designs, but these have remained and the test of time, and they've survived, I should say, the test of time. So let me move this one out of the frame for a moment and just talk about these two engines. So both of these engines look nearly identical. Maybe I can zoom in just a little bit more here so you can get a little bit better. And maybe move this over here. So from this angle, these engines look pretty close to being identical, but there are two key differences, and they're different engines. And the difference is, there's a slight visual difference, but the difference between these two engines is that this is a 91 and this is the original 120 4-cycle. So the 91 is called the 94C and this is the 120 4C. Now the two visual differences, let me do a little bit of here so you can see some of these major similarities in these engines, and that's why you wouldn't even know the difference necessarily. And that's kind of the purpose of this video, is maybe a little bit of information to those that don't know these things and are curious, because they may go on eBay and see things that are mislisted as one thing when they're really something else, which is kind of the point of this. So let's go back to this side view. So the two major differences here, again, 91, original 120, is that you can see the prop hubs or thrust washers are totally different. This one is just completely straight. This one's flared out. Looks kind of like an OS one. And I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure because of how they fit in there, they've got the two flats. I'm pretty sure that's original. Pretty sure that's original. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't have another one of these new in box to verify that against. But the other thing is, there's a little bit of a gap here. So this 120 is the exact same case and head as the 91. It looks like they've stroked it a little bit and maybe bored it out a little bit. But other than that, these are basically the same engine. I mean, look, they have the exact same carburetor, exact same intake manifold, exact same everything, except minor differences there. Now this, and here you can even see the lower case. It just has a little milled out area that's a circle that they just stamped 120 in there. Why? Because this was a 94-cycle case, just like that. So what they had to do is put a little mill in there, make a circle, and then stamp 120. So that's the difference here. So you've got two engines, 91 4C, or 90 4C, I apologize, not 91, 90. 120 4-cycle. Okay, let's move the 91 off and let's move this back in. This, and since it's a little bit bigger, I gotta make sure I keep these things right here. This is an Enya R120. Many people will assume that they are the same thing, and they're not even close to the same thing. In fact, they're two completely different engines. The crank, everything about this engine is different than this one. It's a larger displacement, it's a larger case, it's a different bore. I don't know about bore, but look, different carb. Now, Enya's always, the Enya 4-strokes all feature air bleed carburetors. So that's another thing that stands out. You know, Sato's always had the twin needle carbs, and Enya 4-strokes have always had air bleed carburetors. But you can see here, there's a big difference between these two carburetors. If you look at it this way, there's a big difference in, let me move this thing back up. There's a big difference in these crankcases too. I mean, this is just a bigger engine, more powerful. The R120 has this swooping intake manifold, different carb, different case. And this is where a lot of people get confused. And here's another huge difference in the R120. The R120 has, you actually use 2 screws to thread on the exhaust. That's one of the biggest things. If you're looking at ads and somebody may say, well, this is a 120 4-cycle. That's because it does say 120 4-cycle on the case. Why? I don't know. Why they don't put an R there and eliminate any confusion, I'm not sure. But so between the carb, the intake manifold, and the way the exhaust is attached to this engine, you can see it's 2 very different things. So there's currently a listing on RC, or not RC groups, on eBay for the images are of this engine, and it's for some person that knows, you know, RC glow engines, or at least they should, because it's like, you know, I don't remember the name of the, but RC is part of their seller name or whatever. So they sell a lot of glow engines. They should know the difference, but yet they've got this engine listed as an R120. And a buddy of mine pointed that out to them, and according to him, they responded acknowledging it, but they refused to change the ad. So in my estimation, that's a miscategorization, or just it's just dishonest, because if you know the difference and you're not actually advertising it correctly, then that's a problem. So that's kind of the point of this video, is I wanted to show you that yes, there are 2 Enya engines that are nearly identical, but they're different. 90, 120, and then you got the R120, and I've pointed out the differences. Now, this particular R120 is one that I just finished putting back together. It has a lot of new parts on it. A friend of mine, Jay, vapor honed it. This is actually listed in numerous groups on Facebook. I made a video about this the other day. Nobody seems interested in this engine, which just kind of blows my mind, because this is the most sought after Enya 4-cycle engine. And so whatever, if nobody is interested in it, then I'm probably not going to have much choice but to put it on the stand and run it and show people what they're missing out on. In fact, even though nothing is listed, there's a saying in this world that says, you know, everything's for sale for a price. So I guess you could say that's kind of true here, is everything is for sale if you're willing to pay the price. Now, I love these 2 engines. I have no intention of selling them. They're not advertised, but if somebody's willing to pay the price, everything is for sale for a price. This one has already got a stated price. So that wraps up the Enya 4-stroke section of this video. The next portion of this video is right here in this bin, which is an interesting thing, because this is an Enya 2-stroke engine. It's an Enya 45 model 6001. Now this engine is obviously disassembled, and it's disassembled because I'm going to invest a little bit of money into this engine. This is an engine that came in a group of engines from friend Mike, that gave these group of engines to me. Basically, I think it was in 2022, right after I moved here. And I did do one run video of this just as it was. It could have been called a box to the bench run, and the engine runs really well. Of course it does. It's an Enya engine. Of course it runs. But what I've decided to do is I was going to clean it up and put some new bearings in it, because these are pretty old. And it's such a nice engine. I mean, Enya engines just run. I'm going to clean it up, and I found an exhaust for this thing, because it didn't have an exhaust. I think a lot of these were set up so that they have that baffle type of exhaust that was linked to either the throttle arm. but it also has some holes here, but I don't know that those are tapped, but it'll have a clamp on exhaust. So I'm going to invest a little bit of money. I found an exhaust. I got that on order, but the thing that I thought that was really interesting about this engine is something I don't recall ever seeing before on an RC engine that I have worked on, at least not that I recall, and apparently I've never had one of these apart, is that, let me get this piston out, is that this engine actually has dual piston rings. I pulled it out and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I hope you can see that. So this has got a dual piston ring setup. And yes, I know where the gaps go because the fore and aft sections of this do not have porting. So one gap will go here, the other gap will go here. But it's just very curious to me that this engine actually has two piston rings. It's just not something I've seen before on glow engines. I'm sure other glow engines have, you know, dual piston rings, older ones, but I know most modern ones do not. So that's why this is all disassembled. It's going to get all cleaned up, have new bearings put in it. I don't know that this case is going to get, it won't look shiny and new again unless I send it off to Jay and have him do his vapor honing on it, which is always a possibility. I might do that if he's willing to do that for me, because this is really kind of a cool engine. It's a cross-flow or a loop scavenged engine, as you can tell by the way it's ported and the ramp here, or the baffle on the top of the piston. That indicates a loop scavenged or a cross-flow scavenged engine. I don't know if those two words are synonymous, those two phrases, but this thing feels really, really rough. It's going to get all cleaned up. I've got an exhaust coming. And that kind of concludes the Enya portion of this video. And I'm just going to leave you with this little tidbit and a quiz for those of you OS aficionados, or anybody really. Just here's a quick quiz. This is something that I just got in the mail. Look at the size of this and look at the model number on this muffler. It's an 855. In the coming days, more will be revealed about why I have this in my hand. But right now, the quiz is OS 855 exhaust. What engine or engines does this fit? That's your clue for the next, well, another video that's coming up in the next few days. And with that, I leave you. Have a wonderful day.